All right, so this is all new. This is our very first visual recording of the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. This is episode 350. You're going to see me recording this podcast episode, and clearly I am not really camera ready. It just is what it is. I'm going with the energy of the moment, and you can expect to see more of these on my YouTube channel, as well as other visual platforms. I wanted to do this because there's a lot of great stuff coming, which you'll hear me announce in the podcast episode. But make sure that you follow, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment. Let me know if you resonate with this episode. And if you want more of them like this, we've got a lot of cool stuff coming this season on the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get into the episode. Welcome back to the Aligned and Unstoppable podcast. This is episode 350. And this week's podcast, I'm going into really how to tell if you're on the right path. And the reason why I was inspired for this episode is a number of things. Number one, I'm going through my own stuff too. Obviously, like, I think I like to re-emphasize this, is even though I am a teacher and a leader and a spiritual guide, I am also on the path as well. We're right there. Maybe I'm a couple steps ahead. Maybe we're next to each other. Perhaps I'm behind you, but we are all still learning and growing. I'm always a student. And I decided to make this episode because I want to share my process with you, because I know we all have our own way of doing things. And my way is not the right way, but it's my way. And I wanted to share with you because maybe there's a little nugget that you can borrow from what I do so that you can feel more confident on your path too. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about sort of what happens when you're going through these shifts and how to process, and then ultimately how to feel really grounded and aligned in the decisions that you make, knowing and trusting that you are led with your intuition, you feel good, and ultimately making a decision in your highest and best interest. This podcast is also being recorded visually. This is the first time I've done it. We have some really exciting changes and updates and like goodies that we're bringing to the podcast this season. So number one, if you are listening to me on your normal listening platform, you can also head over to my YouTube channel, Emily Aarons, and see a visual representation of this episode. It's not going to be the best because, we're still working out the kinks. This is so new. Actually, I had a meeting with one of my contractors that we're working together with, doing a whole bunch of really great updates for my whole company. But one of the things I said to her, I said, you're going to love me and also be frustrated with me because I move quickly. So you're not going to expect me to have a punch list item and not do it. I'm going to do that. Plus, I'm going to have inspiration for 3 more ideas. It's great. It's a gift, but it's also probably frustrating to work with me in that way, which also leads me back to this exact topic. So yes, you can head over to YouTube for this podcast, as well as, the weekly Angels in Your Biz forecast. I also have some really cool things coming up that I'm going to be trying out, which is sharing what it looks like when I do my business of soul and soul alignment sessions with clients one-on-one. So up until this point, you really haven't seen me work with individuals. You've maybe been part of the Karma Cleanse or Mastering Ascension or Money Block Clearings or Intuition Week. You've experienced what it's like to be with me in a group setting, which is awesome and powerful and impactful and life-changing. However, it's really not often that you get to see behind the scenes of a personal, intimate session with me and a client. The reason why is because, number one, they're totally confidential. I don't share them. I don't name drop. I know a lot of people, use their clients and like they name drop. I do not do that. These are very sacred spaces. Unless my client gives me a testimonial, that's a different story. But this is actually something that I've done with just a handful of people who are part of my Mastering Ascension membership. I've reached out to some of my annual members and I said, hey, would you like to be part of this new thing that I'm doing? You'd have to sign a waiver because we're going to be using this session, and these can be intimate sessions, and I don't want to share it publicly without your written consent. So they've all consented to do this. And I'm really, really excited about it. We're starting off with 6 sessions. We're going to see how my community enjoys them. We're going to share a recap on the podcast. We're going to probably share one of the sessions on the podcast, but then everything else will be shared through my YouTube channel. We might have some clips that we share otherwise, but it's a really big project. And, these big projects, these big choices, it's not just, I think of it in a bubble and I do it. It involves a whole team. It involves a bunch of people and a lot of moving parts. And so we're going to produce those as fast as we possibly can. Definitely check them out. I know they'll be available in Q1. I just don't know exactly because, like I said, there's a lot of moving parts involved with it, but I'm going to be recording these healing sessions at the beginning of the year and in an intimate space. And I have no idea what to expect. I think that's also part of the magic in them, is that, anytime I have a client call, my process is really unique in that I sit in that person's energy for a long period of time before we even meet each other virtually on Zoom. And then we get into the session and I don't know what to expect. It's literally spirit-led. Whatever comes through, I trust is in the highest and best interest for them. And that's how it goes. So I literally have no idea what to expect, but I think that's also what's cool about it. And lastly, we are working on this really cool workshop. So, if you've experienced Intuition Week with me, we've done some other cool free workshops and classes and things like that. But I've been really called to dive even deeper, to really help you understand the energetic side of having a business. And I do really quite literally mean understand energy. And so without teaching you how to do energy healing, because that's not what you're here for, I want to really help you dive into what is energy and how does it impact your business? Because what we think of as energy is like those little models of like the person sitting in the lotus position with the rainbows over their chakra system. And that's like an ideal, perfect scenario, but we all know that doesn't necessarily translate when we have life stressors, business stressors, family, relationships, home. Like we have so much coming at us all the time. And so our energy system does take a toll. And when we're not receiving regular energy healings, it's just kind of like compiled over and over and continuously, sort of stressing our system, our body, our energy field. And I want to sort of not just give you that awareness, but then also we're going to be doing a bit of an assessment of ourselves and understanding how do we get out of that. And like I said, this is brand new. I've never taught it before. I'm exclusively teaching this for the Mastering Ascension waitlist folks. And the reason why is because I know you guys already know me, and I feel like that's a safe space for me to share this workshop. I'm not ready to share it publicly yet. I might, but right now, if you want to get on the list for the Business and Soul Alignment Experience, which is what I'm calling it, what you need to do is get on the Mastering Ascension waitlist. Like I said, this is only available to waitlist people. I'm not sending it publicly to my list. I will tell people on my list to get on the wait list. I'll tell my podcast listeners to get on the wait list. But that's where it's going. So, if you have an interest already in energy, if you have an interest already on how to get your business in alignment with your soul's purpose, this is the workshop. Okay. So, EmilyAarons.com/groups. Link is in the show notes, EmilyAarons.com/EP350. So that's how you get it. So, let's get into this week's episode. I know I had a lot of stuff to share before we even started. So we're going to talk about how to find out if you're on the right path. So there's a lot of pivots, transitions, and changes going on. I know for sure Q4 for me was like all of the changes. There was one thing that I was planning on doing, I felt really, really good about, which was my email list growth challenge. And as I was doing it, I was feeling like I was like really moving fast. My team and I were moving fast. We're trying to get it out the door, moving it, getting it, hitting deadlines, which was great. And we can do that if we need to, we can. And then as soon as I started teaching it, it was like, there was something off. And it wasn't that I couldn't teach the content. I could teach it with my eyes closed. I taught the first class and I was like, no, it's a full body no for me. I ended up canceling that workshop, even though I think 900 people signed up for it. It was a lot of people. And I said, you know what? You have this beautiful workbook that's going to get you where you need to go. And I'm happy that you have that. take it from here. Some people made separate groups outside and said, well, let's work together through this, which was really cool. But my whole community really bonded together and said, like, we got you. Like, I really appreciate you being a leader here and standing up for what you feel is right for you. And it teaches me and it gives me permission to do the same thing. And so as we start in understanding, how am I on the right path versus the wrong path? So I'd like to kind of back the truck up. Like I was talking about, we need to understand energy. So the principle is energy before form, meaning energy moves faster than the physical form. So for example, when it comes to energy healing and even ideas, so ideas come through your energy field first. Your crown chakra is like an antenna up to heaven, and it's plugged in, or sometimes maybe not for some people who aren't, but for the most of us, I mean, I don't usually find a lot of issues and blocks or things going on with the crown chakra for the most part, but everyone's different. We are plugged in. We have this beautiful little tether, this antenna going up to heaven, that we're plugged into source energy, our source wisdom, our higher self. Excuse me, I'm getting over being really sick. Side note, I had an amazing healing session and I felt like I was coming down with ascension symptoms, and I tested negative, and then a few days later I tested positive. So there's that. And, I have really, like, honestly, truly felt more grateful than anything to have the antibodies. So, however, I'm still processing some of that out. But again, this is part of up leveling. This is part of growth. This is part of change. My energetic body was already shifting and changing, and here we are, my physical body. So I guess that cough kind of drove in the point. So energy moves before form. So you get the idea that comes in through your energy field, through your crown chakra. It starts to get a little bit denser. It starts to come down to process into your third eye. That's your intuition. That's your inner knowing, your inner wisdom. Then it comes down into our throat chakra. It's how we speak our truth. It's our visibility down into our heart chakra. This is how we connect with our loving, our unconditional love. It processes down into our will center, what we want to put out into the world, down into our creative center, and then fully down into rooting into our foundation of money, family, safety, security. And so as it's processing, this idea is fully coming into our body. If we're having blocks in one of these energy centers, that's where the idea gets stuck too. And so, for example, if you're stuck in your third chakra, your will center, your solar plexus, you're never going to be able to process that idea down into the creative centers and down into, the money, safety, security. So this is like the root of the issues that we have as entrepreneurs. If our energy system has blocks, it's like literally plugging up the stream of information to flow in. So first and foremost, understanding energy before form, there is this energetic component that's already moving through you. And so when you can start to tap into that energy, you start to, make decisions. So I will use the example that I mentioned, doing the healing sessions on like a visual platform and sharing them. This idea came to me in the fall, and it wouldn't leave me alone. I'm like, oh yeah, I love that idea. I want to be like the Tyler Henry, Hollywood medium, but for entrepreneurs. Like I would love to do that, show people what I do. And, I think that'd be really cool. And I kind of reached out to a couple people. I was like, what do you think of that? And like the idea, but like, for me, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. Let it percolate. I don't know, see what's going to happen. And as I let that kind of sit, other ideas came in and went and in and went, and I didn't really do anything with it. And that's what I tend to do. And then once you get the idea, so now we're at this another phase where it's starting to really formulate. It's starting to really manifest in that I'm going, okay, I think it's time I reach out to people and see if they want to do it. And then people started saying yes. And then I started to reach out to my team and go, okay, it's a go. What are the next steps? How do we produce it? How do we bring it to that next like public view? And so we're discussing it. And it's like in those discussions, there are then like little micro decisions that have to be made. So, we had a discussion even just yesterday, me and my team member, Katrina, and I was saying, okay, so is this exclusively for YouTube? Or do we share these as individual podcast episodes as well? And, you could argue either way. You totally could, which we have done as a team and before, and kind of weigh the pros and cons. That's definitely one thing to do. But here's my process of making a decision and how I know I'm making the right decision. So number one, I pause and I feel. So we came to this crossroads where we're like, okay, what do we do? And I asked Katrina, so what do you think? What should we do? And she's kind of thinking of it. I'm kind of thinking of it. Sometimes I'll ask close friends or peers. In this case, I didn't, because I didn't feel like it was like, that ornate. I really needed to go there. But then I feel again. And in the conversation with her, I mean, this could be like over a few minutes that we're kind of back and forth. And I said, you know what, I need to feel into this a little bit longer. And this is where I think a lot of people get stuck, especially people who are very energetic, very esoteric, very feely types of people, and very empathic. You can go into, okay, let me feel into it. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to meditate on it. And then you never proceed after meditating. Maybe you don't even get to meditate. Maybe that's your code word. And I'm calling you out here is let me sit with it. Let me meditate on it. Is that your code word for I'm too scared to move forward? Is it? Are you buying yourself some time, but actually not doing anything? Because that's a problem. You can't just sit and meditate on everything. You have to make decisions. Is your business moving forward or is it stagnant? Is it where you want it to be or is it not? And maybe you're getting stuck in indecision. That's where a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck. They get stuck in indecision. Then you get into overwhelm. Then they get paralyzed. And then they take their, perfectly beautiful 5 to 8 hour, work day. And they just spin their wheels and they scroll social media and they're doing busy work. They're not doing money producing activities because you get stuck at the step of feeling into making the decision or just indecision fatigue. We get decision fatigue because we make hundreds of decisions every day. This is where our intuition really shows up. If you truly want to move your business forward, you have to have some tools and resources that get you out of that little rut of just feeling and into action. And like I said, this concept, it wasn't that I was in indecision. I knew that I love this idea in my whole body. I was like, oh yeah, I love this idea. But it wasn't the time. I wasn't stalling. I wasn't, dilly-dallying. I don't know what the word is. But it wasn't that I was like afraid of it and I wasn't going to move forward. I just was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to let it kind of blossom on its own. And then when it's time and I feel called, and now it's here. And I allow it to kind of move its course through me because everything comes in divine timing. We can't force everything. As much as we want to make 6 figures in 6 days, whatever the bullshit that people are selling, there's a lot of it. We don't need to move at a rapid speed. We have to move at our pace. And like I talk about all the time is that I'm not looking for you to follow in my footsteps and do what I've done. I am letting you know that it's time to create a one-size-fits-you business model. Here are some tools to do it that make it feel good for you. This is how we find alignment, not by copy and pasting somebody else's stuff. That's kind of dull. It doesn't get you very far because that was their life path. You're on your own. So I feel into it and then I act. That final piece of taking action. So when we were in the conversation yesterday, I needed just a minute to feel. And as I feel, I'm breathing and I'm connecting to my higher self and I'm just noticing where I'm being drawn. Some ideas are popping up and maybe I'm talking them out. And then I get into that place where I go, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I drop into my heart. I drop into my belly. But more importantly, it's my heart. I feel like we, as business owners, use our head a lot. Sometimes we use our gut, but we use our head a lot. And it's good, but we also need to drop into our heart. Our heart space is where we give and receive unconditional love. And ultimately, when we make decisions in our heart center, it's in the highest and best for ourselves and our customers, our clients. So if I'm really stuck on something, I wait. If that conversation with Katrina yesterday really left me kind of spinning my wheels and like, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? And I'm doing that thing, I will basically like just say, hey, listen, I can't do this right now. I need to sit with it, and I'll circle back, because I don't need to rush it out just for the sake of making a decision that I'm going to be, oh my God, later regretting. And so I will say this is that, this, like last night, I was really feeling into these big projects. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we're changing the podcast around. We're adding some visual components. I'm adding healing sessions. And I've got this business and soul alignment experience coming. I've got these big things that are in the works. And I just paused last night before I was going to bed and like, am I moving too fast? Is it too much? And just being like there in that silence, it gives me that place of pause and breath, because I am certainly like, if you guys were astrology people, you looked at my chart, you'd be like, oh, damn, you got like a lot happening over here. In my chart, which I literally can't explain to you, I'm sorry. But in my chart, I have this party of planets that gives me like Energizer Bunny energy. A lot of times people will ask me, I don't know how you do all you do. Oh my God, it's crazy. And for me, it's normal. And so I had to be very mindful, because I have a lot of that fiery energy in my system, in my chart, and I can easily get wrapped up in like, ooh, do more, do more, do more. And that's why it's really important for me to pause and breathe. And so even looking back at like the email list growth challenge, I was moving real fast, and I don't think I paused. I was really determined to get to that end goal of having it done, putting it out there in the world, teaching it, launching, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it was only in that moment when I taught that first class and everything in my body was like, no, that I was like, oh, I don't have to do this. And then I got into these thoughts of like, what if I don't do it? Holy crap, what if I don't do it? And all of the dominoes, either way of like, oh my gosh, the hours that my team members have spent on this, the hours that I have spent on this, the hours I have spent promoting this, talking about it, leading up to it, getting people to show up for it. The activity in the Facebook group, like 900 people, holy crap. And then the other side of it, which is, this is launching my mastermind. How do I feel about my mastermind? Do I want to still do this? Can I still do this? Is it the right time for this? And it was these big decisions that I had to make. And ultimately, all of the decisions, back to how do I know I'm on the right path? All of these decisions had to be felt internally. And it truly wasn't until that exact moment that I was questioning anything. I was going along fine. I felt pretty good about my programs. I felt really good about launching it. I felt really good. And it wasn't until that exact moment. And so I really had to deeply dig and just give myself permission to just do what I felt called to do. And I think that can be a very difficult place to be, especially when you're new, because I'm a seasoned veteran of making business decisions. I have never not followed through on something I was going to do. And so this process is very advanced. This is not for somebody who's brand new to business and like thinking of idea and putting it out there and then retracting it and doing it and maybe not sure. This is not for you. This is advice and from an experienced person who has done, I don't know, dozens and dozens of launches, sold hundreds of thousands of dollars of programs and coaching. This isn't for somebody who's just starting out and like, you're still that insecure, not sure phase where you're on the steep side of the learning curve, trying to get your business going. This is for somebody who has got the business going, and you really have to deeply see what's inside of yourself to go, but what feels good for me? What lights me up? And ultimately 2022, this is what we're going to be doing, folks. So I envision that this episode is going to be like on everybody's playlist all year long. because we have to continuously remind ourselves, okay, energy before form. I can pause and feel. I can ask a team member. I can ask close friends and peers. I can feel, but then I have to act. But ultimately, how can you even trust your feelings when you're not trusting your feelings with small things? And this is where I want to teach more energy work, right? I want you to understand how to use your intuition, because frankly, if you're not trusting your intuition for stupid things like, oh, should I bring my umbrella today? Oh, it's perfectly sunny out. Well, if you're having that debate with yourself and your intuition says, go bring it, then who are you to question it? You just go get it. Okay. And this is like constant language I'm developing with my spirit team, my higher self, and me. It's like, it's just a constant. So I'm not doubting myself ever. There's a lot of folks who are stopped and stuck in just self-doubt constantly. I have confidence and I have security because I trust my intuition, which allows these decisions to become so easy. So I want to go into the question, what if I make the wrong choice? So you can look at my story that I've shared, right? I've given you a real tangible example. So do you, listener, do you think that by me creating the email list growth challenge, was that a mistake? Did I make a mistake? Because you already know how it ended. I ultimately canceled it because it didn't feel good. But would you say that was a wrong decision? This would be a really good topic for debate. So maybe take a screenshot of this episode. Let me know what you think on Instagram. If you're watching me on YouTube, put it in the comments below. Did I make a mistake for launching the email list growth challenge? And why? Why would you say it was a mistake, or why would you say it wasn't a mistake? And I want to talk about that. So the word, did I make the wrong choice? That's a fear-based word. Fear, right? Wrong. You feel that in your body. Where do you feel wrong? What does wrong feel like? Wrong feels like tightness and heaviness in my chest. What does it feel like for you? Wrong. Oof. Feels like I'm being scolded as a child. Wrong. It feels like my head hurts. Wrong feels heavy for me. So let's look at wrong as a fear. So what do we do with fear? For me, I follow my fear. I follow to the end of the story. So, okay, let's say I made the wrong choice. Let's make the wrong choice. Okay, Emily made the wrong choice. Okay, so what happened after I made the wrong choice? I just changed at the end of it, or at the beginning, I guess. I changed what I was going to do. And I decided I wasn't going to do it. Okay, so then what? Then I stopped. Okay, so then what? Then I didn't do my program. So then what? I felt lighter. So then what? People supported me. So then what? Some people didn't like it. So then what? Nothing else. That was it. In our minds, though, the story hasn't played out. Like that story literally played out. But if you think of, okay, well, doing this healing session on YouTube thing, well, what if it's the wrong choice? Let's go through that, because I haven't done it yet. I don't know what it's going to look like. People don't like it. They don't listen to it. They leave mean comments. They think I look like a weirdo. The people who did the sessions don't like how they're portrayed. I don't know. That could be a terrible thing. What's another worst case scenario? Nobody listens, nobody watches, nobody likes it. Okay, so what? I don't do it again, right? I did 6 sessions. Nobody liked it. I get terrible feedback. I don't feel good about it. I don't have to do it again. Moving on next. See how easy that is when you just follow your fear. It's like, so what? It ends in so what almost, right? Moving on. So is there such thing as a wrong decision? Who says it's a wrong decision in the first place? Who says that? Is it your higher self? No, it's your ego. Are we taking instructions from our ego? Are we taking instructions from our fears? No. To be in alignment, we take instructions from our higher self. And we have to understand that we are always plugged into GPS. You know, if you're going to someone's house for the first time, some location for the first time, you put it in your GPS and you just get redirected. Did you take a wrong turn? Yeah. It said to go straight down Mass Ave and take a left on Newbury Street, but instead I stayed straight on Mass Ave and I didn't take that left turn. So the next street is, I don't know, Clarendon. I don't know. These are Boston roads that make no sense, but you know what I'm saying? You get the next turn. You get the next turn. It takes you to a U-turn. It takes you to the next exit. It turns you back around to where you're supposed to be going. So if you could just trust that your GPS is always on, you're always being redirected, what's the fucking problem? Sorry. I'm sorry to say that. Sorry. What is the problem? What is actually the problem if you just start taking movement forward? That's that action piece, then act, right? That's that action piece. So I go and I get redirected. Am I doing the wrong thing? I don't think so. Because here's what's happened. When you've making the quote wrong decision to do the thing that you ultimately don't end up doing, which happens like literally year after year as an entrepreneur, I would be disappointed in myself if I was doing the same thing year after year in my business, in my marketing, my messaging, if I wasn't evolving. Because you could look at it as the wrong decision, and you could also look at it as I'm evolving. This is the next version of me coming through. And that one is just not, that's the outdated one. It doesn't work anymore. So I'm always learning and evolving. So is it wrong, or are you evolving? It's not the wrong choice. It's just the choice at that time. And frankly, we're doing the best that we can at any given moment with what we have. We're working with what we got, you know? So here's some ways, you know, besides those questions or those ways that I make a decision. I'll repeat it, the 5 ways I do it. So number 1, pause and feel. 2, ask a team member. Number 3, ask close friends and peers. 4, feel. Number 5, act. So here's what else I do. In between and consistently on a daily basis. Again, I talked about, it's always a conversation, my higher self, my intuition. I'm constantly in conversation. So I use Oracle cards. And today, before this podcast, as I wrote my notes together, I picked a card. What is the one card that is going to resonate the most with the listeners for them to be able to make decisions to keep them on the right path? And it is prioritize. This is from my Angels in Your Biz Oracle deck. You can get it on my website, get your own deck. Pick one thing. So if you're in indecision, if you're not sure you're on your right path, pick one thing and just start to go through this process that I just shared with you. You don't have to get yourself overwhelmed and caught up, right? If you're in overwhelm, you just need to prioritize. Just make one decision, like line it up. I know yesterday when I had all these big projects going on, I was like, I need to just brain dump everything that's in my head and sort it out in order. Sometimes just doing that helps me to feel like, oh, it's like only a handful of things. And I know I can bang these 3 things out really fast. It's not going to be a big deal. Easy. Prioritize. Okay. So I use Oracle decks. I go out in nature, and also nature comes to me. So recently I've been visited by a ladybug. And to me, that's a very significant message. You can also Google animal totem for ladybugs and see the messages that way. But even if it were a hawk flying over you, or a deer, or I don't know, some other cool animal, it doesn't even have to be cool. It could be any animal. I think all animals are cool, but any animal that kind of crosses your path, minus like your own dog and cat, hamsters and whatnot, you know, you can Google that animal totem to see what the energy is that's coming in for you. This is why going out in nature is so cool, because like sometimes you just see cool stuff. You're like, what? How did I even see that? How did that bumblebee like literally land in front of me? How did that dragonfly literally land on my hand? Like what? And they're sharing messages with you. Prayer, you know, this is the thing I talked about it on an Instagram live just earlier this week around, you know, there's a lot of prayer that needs to happen. Like how often do we feel like we need support, but we're not actually asking for it? Whether it's literally to our friends and family and our team, or energetically to our spirit team. Like our spirit team is always on standby. Like, how can I help you? As you wish. Gotcha. But we don't always ask. So prayer is asking. Meditation is listening. So I do pray. I pray a lot. And I meditate a lot. And I also was talking to a client the other day, and she was saying, you know, I really struggle with meditating. I just feel like I have a block against meditating. I'm like, okay, that's fine. Like, And what came in for her was like, well, what if like your thing that you do ritually is your meditation? Like my husband gardens. When he's in the garden, is he present? Yep. Is he distracted by his thoughts and other things? Nope. Is he feeling connection and openness and connect with his higher self? Yep. So like, can you do that while you're cooking and reading and walking and working out and sitting with your baby or whatever you do? Yeah. So can we just call that meditation and like take the expectation off of ourselves? Let's just make it easy. And then I tune into my yes. So this is a big important thing, and this is advanced. So practice. What does my yes feel like versus my no? That hell yes feeling. Keep practicing it, because the more you know your yes, the more you're going to really know your no. And, you know, you've heard people say, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. So let's like honor that. This is part of trusting our intuition. This is big this year. So I would love, 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 love to see your reaction to this episode. I would love to hear maybe what's one thing that you do to know when you're on the right path. So all the listeners and the viewers at this point, let me know. Leave a comment below under the YouTube video, take a screenshot and tag me in your Instagram stories. What is one thing that what's like your tried and true way of knowing you're on the right path? And it could be one of the things that I mentioned, but how do you know? And now I'm hearing Whitney Houston, how do I know? Right? So how do you know? That's our song for this week's episode. And I apologize for that as well. Should, you know. But let me know. Also, if you want to see more of these visual podcasts, you know, I am not gussied up by any stretch. And maybe I can for future episodes, but let me know. Do you want to see more of these? Because part of how I make my decisions as well is getting feedback from my amazing, beautiful, lovely community, which is constantly growing. So it's like, you might be new here. You might have been here for years. Your opinion really matters to me. And I mean that. So if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please go ahead and do that right now. YouTube at Emily Aarons, and sign up for that Business and Soul Alignment Experience. That's my waitlist, emilyaarons.com/groups. That's how you get on the wait list. And then I'll be sending messages to those waitlist folks. And if you haven't subscribed yet on iTunes, make sure you do. If you are loving this podcast and you enjoy this content, you want to hear more of it, you're really digging it, leave me a positive review on iTunes. I would love that. Make sure you follow us. Me. It's me. Thank you so much for being here, for your energy, for this container. This platform means the world to me. The fact that I could say this is episode 350 is like mind blowing, because it was almost 3 years ago now that I started this podcast, and I had so much doubt of like, why am I doing this? No one cares. But we are getting tens of thousands of downloads every single month. So what that tells me is it's resonating. And so if you have a suggestion for a podcast, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. You can also text it to me if you're on my community texting. I do periodically ask for those folks who are on that list. But thank you from the bottom of my heart, really. Thank you so much for being here, for listening. And this is like a cheers to you, to staying on your path of what feels really good, and also trusting you're never not on your path. Okay. Lots of love to you. Thanks for being here.